Hello there. I'm happy to welcome all the viewers and all the participants of that discussion at one of the last events we have under the auspices of the Cultural Forum, Culture 2.0. My name is Evgenia Agafonova. I'm a TV host uh, with the 78 TV channel. I'm happy to welcome all of you. Hello again. But before we start our discussion, let me explain you what Culture 2.0 is. It's a permanent discussion platform organized by the St. Petersburg Cultural Forum, and the key block of its educational program, the Open Lecture series, considers culture through the prism of new reality. The focus of Open Lecture Cultures 2.0 is on technologies in contemporary culture, from digital and virtual tech to social practices, technologies of setting up public spaces inclusive and educational cultural projects, etc. Today's session is an interesting one because today we're going to be discussing what a blockchain in art is. Because modern artists are moving towards sociology, Internet of Things, biology, and etc. So a blockchain art seems as a separate track or as a separate field of art. The possibility of creating a self-sustained work of art is becoming more attractive for creators. But why? Not everybody is following this path. Will Bitcoin pieces of art become high art? And what doesn't? Allow galleries treat blockchain as something serious, because blockchain technologies make the transactions in the art sphere more transparent. The usage of smart contracts, the obligations under which are automatically performed, facilitate better relations between the buyer and the seller without the mediators. Will the blockchain open up new vistas for new opportunities, and will the pieces of art become more accessible then for people not that well off? Blockchain technologies are there to mainly help prove the origin of pieces of art, and today most of our pieces of art belong to the luxury segment, and their high costs conducive to lots of frauds and fakes. So the opportunity of digitizing that will make the whole industry more legal, but will it make it cheaper as well? That's an open question. And will a new market appear, the open market, and a new platform for that? That's exactly what we're going to discuss with our speakers now. Speakers are coming online. We see them coming, and they've got connected, and now I'm going to introduce you to them. Robert Norton. Robert, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, we're fine, good. I hope that you're fine as well, and we will now listen to blockchain, and we'll start with you. But first, let me introduce everybody else, all the other participants of this discussion. Kate Vasilyeva, who's the founder of Kate Vase Gallery. Hello, Kate. Hello, Kate. Your mic doesn't work, but that's fine. Hopefully that later on it will work better. Sophia Cresper, an artist from Germany. Sophia, hello. We see a beautiful painting on the background. Sophia, you're definitely to tell us about that picture out there. Mikhail Libman, who's the co-founder of Snark.art. Mikhail, hello.
Hello, Evgenia. Nice to meet you.
Mutual and Mark Byrne, an internet entrepreneur and an artist. Hello, Mark.
Yes, hi everybody. Looking forward to our session.
Yes, we introduced all the speakers, and of course, we have the audience. And the audience can participate in this discussion, and the audience is free to ask their questions in social networks, and we will try to answer all of them. But let's begin our journey. Let's begin our blockchain journey with Robert Norton. The floor is now yours.
Thank you. Ja nie mogę говорить по-русски, извините. Я надеюсь, вы можете...
I can't speak Russian, I'm sorry.
И понимает по-английски. With that out the way, thank you so much, St. Petersburg Cultural Forum, for inviting me. My name is Robert Norton. I'm the CEO and co-founder of VERISART. Prior to VERISART, I was the CEO and co-founder of SeditionArt, a leading digital art platform, and also COLLECTIBLES. So I'm here in the next 5 minutes to share with you a little bit of what brought my attention to this space and what we do at VERISART, just to give you a little glimpse. So with that, I'm going to kick off my presentation. Okay, so we're a team of art and technology professionals challenging the status quo in the art and collectibles market. We've been operating since 2015. In fact, we were the first company worldwide to apply blockchain certification to the physical art market. To date, we've registered over 20,000 artist certificates on VERISART, working with artists such as Ai Weiwei, Shepard Fairey, and thousands of others. We also hold the distinction of being the first blockchain certification provider to work with eBay. In 2018, we certified several thousand limited edition prints by Ai Weiwei to support World Refugee Day and raise attention for that cause. We're funded by US venture capital and Israeli venture capital firms, including Rhodium, Galaxy Digital, and Sinai Ventures. I guess what brought me to blockchain was really artists, because in my last business, one of the artists we worked with, Casey Reese, who wrote the program Processing, which a lot of artists use for generative artworks. In 2014, he wrote to me about potential other uses of blockchain beyond electronic payment cash, otherwise known as kind of Bitcoin on the Bitcoin blockchain. And it got me really thinking about some of the problems I've seen in the art market over the last 10 years. So in some ways, the art market still remains quite opaque in the fact that there's restricted access to information. There is often a trust hurdle to overcome between buyers and sellers. And increasingly, as digital tools are more powerful, reproductions become harder to fake, to sort of spot, and fakes become harder to spot. So the importance when looking at an artwork is really determining not only is the object true, but has the person selling you the object got the ability to transfer it, and is there consensus over the story or the provenance of that? And I think we're at a really exciting time in that we're really sort of at a huge shift now between the old world and the new world. And having started off in 2009 with being the helm of Saatchi, it's really this year I think has been the most transformative. Certainly, if you look at auction sales, they're up 5x to what they were last year in terms of what's being sold online. If we kind of a quick snapshot of the market. The lowest rung here is the amount of online transactions. So it's still relatively small. It's under 10% of the overall market. And just to give you comparison, if you look at other categories, even just general kind of fashion, you'd expect to see it north of 25, 30%. So I would say that art has a lot of catching up to do. And I really think that, whether it's non-fungible tokens or fractional ownership, we're starting to see a lot more reasons for people to engage in art online. I guess the point of the slide is to say, I think, the market gets bigger and bigger and bigger as you go from like artists to dealers to the industry and collectors themselves. And really at the heart of all this, I believe, are secure and trusted records. And that's what VERISART set out to achieve. So, the blockchain, for those of you that are unfamiliar with the topic, is really a distributed database technology. And one way of thinking about it in a very simplistic term is like an Excel spreadsheet that nobody owns, and the information is cryptographically secure that's entered into it. But how we use it in the art market is that we're effectively tying together what were three different areas: the certificate, the provenance, and the registry, and binding it together with the same set of rules that we all adhere to, which are these cryptographic standards, this append-only data structure that over time I think becomes probably the best way to keep records. And when blockchain technology first came out, there was a great article in The Economist which talked about this being the most significant change since the Medici's system of double-entry bookkeeping. And I actually believe that that was a very prescient comment. VERISART, what we've set out to do is build a very easy platform for artists to upload data and then to have that data structured in a certain way that it becomes able to recognize duplicates, easy to find, easy to secure, and then start to build up an evidentiary picture as you add user verification and different claims and consensus around what is the definitive title of record for that object. So on the left-hand side is one of our artists, Shepard Fairey. This is something that might be familiar to many artists working in the space, how artists traditionally create certificates of authenticity as a piece of paper. And here on the right-hand side is what the VERISART system looks like. If we look at it a little bit more closely, we have a blockchain timestamp in the top right corner. We have the key that is issued by the creator. This is their sort of cryptographic identity. And then there is a URL to check this information, a blockchain record, and a QR code as well. The reason why this is important is it empowers artists to take control of their careers. It puts them back at the heart of a process which, as time passes, they often become disintermediated from. And the benefit of these live records is it not only helps preserve value at every stage, but when you come to sell, if you have the most trusted record, you'll expedite the time it takes to complete the transaction. So this is something that I'm showing for the first time today. It's very new. It's the types of certificates that we'll be launching in the new year on VERISART. These 5 different types, from records to certificates of authenticity to our new product, the Fair Trade Art Certificate, and artist certificates, and then also this kind of diamond certificate where there is specific tagging. And this just, again, give you an idea of what our certificates look like. They're produced directly from interaction with the system. Here is an example of a certificate where the proceeds of the sale are directly benefiting an artist-supported cause, social impact cause or charity. This is where the artist is the original initiator of the certificate. And this is where there's been an additional level of physical tagging associated with a product, which reduces this gap between the physical object and the digital certificate. We start for free, and we price from $10 a month for artists. And I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards. Thank you for the time for the initial introduction.
Спасибо большое, Роберт. Ну, вот вы сказали, да, что блокчейн — это прорыв.
Thanks, Robert. You said that blockchain is a breakthrough, but still the artists and the buyers still have to be told what the challenge, what the breakthrough is about. Thanks. I'll pass the floor to Kate Vasileva, the founder and the creative director of Kate Gallery. And she's online from Switzerland. Kate, take it away.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank for the invitation, and I'm very glad to speak today with everyone, with the colleagues and friends and people I actually virtually met or work with. I think we have 2 people from Switzerland today. Also, Mark Ben is an artist and entrepreneur, and being Russian by origin, I chose to speak English just to support our speakers, for being flexible. Today, my name is Kate. I run Kate Gallery, which is based in Zurich, Switzerland. And the gallery focuses on generative art, digital art, new media art, and all type of innovations that can be integrated into systems that we implement and we try to stay trendy. So I usually ask usually people ask me a question of how the gallery owner can be related to blockchain, or why do I always speak at this sort of platforms? And I just want to say that in the art world, in 21st century, where the technology is developing so fast, that we have to stay on top of things, and we try to be we have to be disrupting in terms of how we deal with things. Dealing with the artists who are using technology professionally, generating with different tools, for example, GANs, or I don't know, convolutional neural networks, or even artists who work with digital tools and draw with Microsoft Word or something like that. With the gallery also has to stay competitive and has to use their latest technology in order to enable the clients to feel safe, and also to enable the sale to go through, in order to keep the provenance, to keep the record. And obviously, when you deal with the digital files like video or digital work by the artist, you also have to find the perfect way of how you transfer this work safely to the client. And in everyday business, I think the art gallery also has to stay competitive, of knowing of what is the advanced tools are on the market. And I've been personally quite interested in all the cryptocurrency, blockchain. I hear myself, so it's a bit tricky to speak. Is there anything we can? Okay, and when I started to learn about it quite late in 2017, investing also in cryptocurrencies and looking at all the hype, what was going on also in financial markets, I've been learning, and I was thinking that the blockchain might be very helpful to sort out some sort of problems that we have in the traditional art world. For example, democratizing fine art as an investment. Many has implemented the fractional ownership as well. That's not really what Kate Vaz Gallery does, but there are many projects since 2018 which are on the market, fractionizing their Picassos and stuff like that, in order to enable people to invest in the fine art, which they cannot afford for some sort of reason buy as a piece, but they can buy a little token and co-own it. Then another problematic probably is to drive digital art sales. Again, talking about the collections of video arts or digital artworks, it's always easier if to do it from a blockchain, so the provenance is there. And of course, the main reason why the gallery and why I'm so interested in to use this technology is improving provenance and fighting against the art forgeries, so particularly when generative art or digital art is widely broad available, and many artists do share the code as well publicly, so it's quite difficult to keep the track, and the blockchain allows us to keep this provenance in place. And the last but not the least, also because we are working with the artists, I try to create an ethical way of paying the artists. And I think, blockchain here is also a very helpful tool in order to make the transactions and secondary market sales transparent for the artists for the future. For example, if you sell the work on the primary market as a gallery and you do a show of the artist, and usually you share the commission with the artist, of course. But then if this work gets resold at the secondary market somewhere in 1 year, 2 years or 3 years, majority of times artists do not get paid and they don't receive any royalties. And here again, blockchain comes as an additional tool which can help, to improve this paying to the artist, and the artist getting royalties for the secondary market as well. So said that, since 2017, there are many blockchain platforms, or platforms driven by the blockchain, which came to their art market space and has been developed to create like a market space where you can connect and democratize the art world, connecting their artists together with the collectors. And nobody was thinking about the middleman or middlewoman like myself, why the gallery would be again taking place. Everybody was trying to make the things more simple, just artist and the collector. Nobody needs a gallery, but apparently, by like the time shows, the gallery also plays quite a significant role by linking one and another and playing probably a new role of linking and mediating, between the artist and the blockchain space. Said that, I've been asked here to speak probably more about the new tools of curation also within the blockchain space, and also how what's the difference, when you deal with the crypto art and blockchain art, since the Canvas gallery started to tokenize and offer digital artworks for sale on the blockchain since 2019. And we've been witnessing a remarkable growth of active collectors and bids, which led to a rise in the prices as well, for the crypto arts. And since we deal with the NFTs, it's called non-fungible tokens. I don't know the translation. I think it's the same in Russian. Literally, it's a token which is related to the artwork. Since the rise of this blockchain spaces and platforms which sell art like OpenSea, Super Rare, Rarible, and many others, there's a big list now. There've been also some spaces which has been building some kind of decentralized virtual lands and linking these NFTs to showcase them and build a new virtual exhibition spaces. So what I would like to share with you today, I think it's mostly maybe more interesting rather than to talk about the crypto art and crypto space and all the marketplace, because then we need more time. I would like to share with you the screen and show you, just to give you an example of one of our exhibitions that we made physically with one of our Norwegian digital artists, Espen Kluge, and we had a beautiful show of his digital works together with physical works in the gallery in the space in Zurich. And then it was in 2019, and then in May this year, 2020, we did their virtual exhibition space for his works, tokenized on the blockchain and shown on our Decentraland space in Somnium space. So let me share the screen with you. So I give you some visualization. Okay, I think you see it now. Oh. Do you see my screen?
Так, Кейт, видим экран.
Okay, great. Difficult, wait a second. I cannot. Here. Okay. Präsentieren, auf Deutsch. So here, this is one of the physical shows that we had in the gallery back in 2018. I'm going to talk about it a bit later if I have time, just to give you an idea of how the exhibition space looks like, and that it's a little bit far away from the traditional art space or traditional white cube where you usually see the works hanging. And this is just an example of exhibition what I've been talking to you about when we had the tokenized artworks by Espen Kluge in Vismea. We have built the whole space just for him, replicating his artworks. We have a video which is kind of a low resolution here, unfortunately, but you can probably see that his portraits, which were made by JavaScript code that he developed himself, they have a vector-based basis, and we had to recreate the whole architecture within our virtual space here, and try to not recreate in the physical space, but try to make it more or less realistic one, and also adding a lot of colors, because he also has a lot of colors in the room. So you can see the difference, what you can create with the virtual space in this decentralized lens, versus some physical representation. This is one of the spaces of the museum. It's called Museum of Crypto Art on the Parcels on Sumnium space, where we also have some works hanging of the ones that has been acquired by the museum. And this is just an example of how the space that we have built, this experience for Aspen Cluj exhibition within the Decentraland. And you have to wear a VR set, or you can actually also, if you have all the setup, you can also enter the space and listen to the music around you. Then you go through the door, and then you end up in this kind of sorry, I don't know if I can show you the movie. I'm not going to show you the movie because the connection is not good. To make a story short, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Literally, the curation, the way how you look, how you experience things, everything has been changing since we started to work with blockchain. I can talk more about things. I think we do so many different stuff, that it's a bit confusing maybe for the audience. So I just probably suggest that they log into katevasgallery.com site and experience everything themselves. And we do the blog, and we do a lot of educational sessions. So everything is there, whatever you need to know about the blockchain, about the collecting digital art or generative art, or what is it and how to use one another. I think everything you find, all the information there. And also just to say that, it's not only the artists that kind of linked digitally that can use this blockchain space, but also traditional artists. We've been seeing many who hasn't been producing anything digitally, but been producing a lot of physical works. Started to use blockchain also to support the provenance, like, for example, with platforms like VERISART, or for the certificates of authenticity, or even tokenizing some fractions of their installations or videos and sell it via blockchain platforms. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. I can see that you're really engaged, and I'm pretty sure you can talk a lot about the exhibitions. Unfortunately, our time is limited, but we could have sit down and listen to you for much longer. But of course, we want to listen to Sofia Crisp as well. She's an artist, and she works directly with blockchain. So, Sofia, the floor is now yours.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me here. I'm going to share with you my screen now, if that works.
Все получится, София.
Everything works.
Okay. Sorry, I'm having a problem with sharing my screen, actually. Okay, here we go. Okay, well, I think unfortunately it's not working. Sharing my screen. Chris?
It does work. It does. We can see everything,
Okay,
Sofia.
perfect. Okay, I'm glad to hear that. Sorry about that. So hello everyone. My name is Sofia Crespo, and I'm an artist. And my main tools are digital. There are neural networks and machine learning. but I also use analog techniques. But I want to start by sharing with you a bit about where I come from, why I do what I do, and then afterwards how the blockchain has impacted the way that I make a living as an artist, and how that has opened up possibilities for me. So artistically, my work is mainly about nature. Nature is the main topic around it. And one of the things that drives me to work with nature is the beauty of the geometry, the geometrical harmony behind the shapes of nature. And this comes both from a visual fascination, but also a mathematical fascination with the shapes. And when a computer has to produce an image, we see that each of the images, each of the patterns that we're able to perceive as we zoom in, they're all made of pixels, and they quickly dissolve, all those patterns dissolve, and they become numerical values. And that's one of the things that I find fascinating about digital art itself, because it makes me wonder a lot of things about what makes an image work in my brain. How does my own brain understand this image, which is actually inherently in the computer is just a set of values organized in a matrix. And one of the things that drew me to work with neural networks is the way that the workflow has changed artistically. One has to, instead of thinking of self-arranging things in an image, in a canvas, for example, an empty digital canvas, one can create a data set with thousands and thousands of images and have an algorithm extract patterns from those images to create a new image. So all of these new processes drive me to ask myself new questions that I wasn't asking myself before in my previous non-digital art practices. And one of these things is how can I dream up new things? Can this algorithm create without, can the algorithm create something that isn't inside the data set? And similarly, can I imagine something that I haven't seen before? I realized that no matter how hard I try, and I've tried it, I cannot imagine a color that I've never seen before. I can imagine only combinations within the parts of the light spectrum that I'm able to see. And this also drives me to ask questions about our own perception and how data sets, these algorithmic processes that we're creating open up a new channel for reinterpreting our own human perception. So to break down my artistic mission, what I try to do is extract the essence of an image, of a pattern that I like from the natural world. And one of these, as example, could be jellyfish nests. I was very much, since an early age, obsessed with the way that jellyfish look and their textures and their transparency, and I wanted to visually extract jellyfish nests. And I didn't care about creating a jellyfish that looks like a jellyfish that we can identify, but creating something that reflects just visually that idea. And more broadly, maybe how to visualize natureness in itself. Where does an image start to communicate nature, and how are we able to identify nature in an image? And I'm not the only person asking these questions. There are scientists behind this research too, like, for example, Aaron Hertzman has published a few papers about visual indeterminacy, and I think this is a fascinating new way of understanding our own visual systems. So having said all this, I want to share with you one of my inspirations, which is the Codex Seraphinianus. This is a non-digital inspiration, actually. It was all drawn by hand. But what you can see here is well, at least in my opinion, Luigi Serafini made an amazing work at creating some form of indeterminacy, where we can see the mix and a combination of elements that maybe resembles a flower, but it's a kind of rearranged flower. And maybe we can see characters that resemble a language, but it doesn't belong to any language that we can read. It's an imaginary language. So basically, that's the core of the concept behind this. And one of the series that I started working on from 2018 is the series Neural Zoo, where I used the convolutional network to recreate nature. And it all started by creating images, and then it moved. Eventually, the practice moved onto video and to 3D. But I'm just going to share with you the images for the sake of simplicity. And what happened this year is that, well, unfortunately, with COVID, artists of all media, we have been largely affected by this, and many of us started wondering, are we going to be able to show works physically again? How are we going to sell our works if shippings are if there are problems shipping our work now, or if people cannot come and see our work in an exhibition? And well, fortunately for me, at least, I work with Kate Vass, and she was the one who introduced me to blockchain, which I didn't know about before. I knew about the technology itself, but I didn't know that there were possibilities for us artists to sell our works in that way, and to be able to make a living in this completely new way. I also didn't know that people would be interested in buying directly a digital piece. And I think this opened an amazing opportunity for me as a digital artist, because my work lives primarily on a digital world. And it's great to have that possibility of being able to put that for sale as it is, without necessarily having to print it, which I love printing it as well, but I also, it feels more natural being able to sell it directly as the work is intended to be. So I think this is, I'm happy to discuss this further in the panel, but thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Sofia. That's exactly the case where a creative humanitarian and a technician and a mathematician are merged in one person, and this person can create such amazing pieces of art. Thanks a lot. We're now moving to our next speaker, Mikhail Liebman, who's the co-founder of Snark.art. He's joining us from United States of America. Mikhail, the floor is now yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for having me here. Let me just go straight into the presentation, because I think we may run out of time. 1 second. Can you see my screen okay?
Все видно, да, все хорошо.
Yes, we can. Everything's good.
All right. So, Snark.art, we launched about 2.5 years ago, basically at the start of the exploration of the NFTs. NFTs were these blockchain blockchain certificates that allowed artists to create what's called digital scarcity. This was a very important step for digital arts because up until that point, it was kind of very obscure subject what it means to own digital art and why one copy of digital art is more legitimate than a perfectly identical other copy. And so that's when the exploration of NFTs took place. And at that time, we were kind of looking at it from the perspective of what are other possibilities of this technology and how can this technology be used sorry, I'm just hearing myself twice. Beyond just kind of identifying a legitimate copy from an illegitimate copy. And so we started imagining an idea where ownership doesn't end on owning an art piece, but it's actually a first step towards some kind of artistic experience. And at that time, we began talking to artists to see how they thought about this technology and its possibilities. And in this presentation, I want to talk about 4 things that we've explored in the past 2.5 years that I think show just the initial steps of how blockchain tech is used in the art space. So number 1 is digital scarcity and ownership. I think Robert did a great explanation as far as that blockchain is this decentralized ledger and ability to assign ownership of specific artworks. All of a sudden, digital also gained this possibility, and that's something that we see a lot more these days with a lot of artists tokenizing their artworks and selling them through a variety of platforms. The next aspect is what's called fractional ownership. This is something that we've only explored somewhat in a slightly different interpretation, but the idea is that for expensive artworks, you could start discussing an idea of owning a fraction of this artwork. It always existed historically, even before blockchain, but now this possibility gains a certain level of transparency and trust in terms of how these fractions are, first of all, traded, but also what they ultimately can do. And the last 2 are also the 2 things that we've explored a lot. One is called decentralized interactivity, one is centralized interactivity. And I think it's better that I show you rather than explain to you what it means. So the very first artist that we actually worked with was an American artist, Eve Sussman. She's a video artist, and about 20 years ago, she creates a video called 89 Seconds at Alcazar. This video, and I don't know, I think we agreed that some videos will be played not on my side, but this is video 1. I don't know if I should play it. But no one can see anything, right? Can anyone see the video? Sorry.
Нет, видео не видно, только слышно.
No, we can't see, we can only hear it.
Doesn't work, so let me just present it on my end. It's going to be without sound, but the idea of this video, as you can see, is that we essentially split the video into over 2,000 video fragments, and these fragments make up the entire video artwork. And the idea behind this piece was to explore the possibility of, on the one hand, democratizing access to an expensive video art piece, but on the other, to explore possibility how collectors can interact with the video artwork. And this is what I kind of want to show you, how the process started even 20 years ago. So 20 years ago, Eve was in Spain and inspired by painting from 1656 by Diego Velázquez, Las Meninas. She decides to create a video that explores the Salon of Alcazar, where Velázquez painted this famous work. She rebuilds the set to incredible architectural detail, finding the original plans of the Salon in Alcazar, and she essentially recreates the setting of that is depicted in the painting, because this is one of the more controversial paintings that has a lot of elements that have been contested and discussed over past almost 400 years. And the video essentially, as Eve likes to explain, is almost like a fly on the wall that explores the space over a period of 10 minutes as Velázquez is painting the scene. And now, once the video was created, we essentially split this scene into over 2,000 video fragments. We divided the visual real estate into fragments like this one, where although you might not hear the sound, you kind of start exploring the actual underlying pixels, and every once in a while you'll see a face or hand, and this is actually what each collector owns. But what's interesting about this is that even though you own the fraction has been programmed to give each collector an ability to, through the smart contract, to send a request and reconstruct the entire video for 24 hours, essentially borrowing the remaining thousands of fragments from other collectors. On the other side, if you're the collector of this fragment, you, as you are the owner, you have the right to choose whether or not you want to share or not. So it was a kind of a way. On the one hand, you know, if you think about digital art historically, if an artist wanted to democratize access to a digital art piece, they tended to rely on the tradition of printmakers of editioning the piece. So essentially creating 10 videos that are identical and selling it to different collections or museums. For example, this piece is in New York. It's in the Whitney Museum, Museum of Modern Art. It's in several important private collections, but it's actually very rarely that you could actually experience this piece live. Eve wanted to figure out a way that with her last artist proof, she could disseminate the piece to potentially thousands of collectors, but offer them a digital experience that digital can provide. There is no reason why digital necessarily needs to follow the editioning model, that there's other models to explore. You could start talking about scarcity being like what we did with this piece by dividing a visual real estate. You could also start talking about scarcity as the number of times this piece is viewed, and this is something that can be programmed in the blockchain. And this is where the idea of this decentralized interactivity versus centralized interactivity comes into place. The interactivity here is decentralized because we fragmented this piece and we split it across hundreds of collectors. And each one decentrally, without, like if Snark ceases to exist tomorrow, this contract will still be live on the blockchain, and every owner can still make a request into the blockchain and request the remaining fragments for 24 hours. That's the decentralized interactivity. The centralized interactivity is another aspect that is also present in this piece, is that we help our collectors to actually reconstruct the video from their 2,000 fragments once they have them for 24 hours. Because the idea that every collector will have the know-how to reconstruct the video is unlikely. And so we created on our server, so hence it's centralized. It's taking the idea from the gaming world where in the current virtual games you can, I don't know, own a shield that can be used in a centralized game. Similarly here, when we see that a collector in the blockchain, it's verified that some collector has the ownership of these 2,000 fragments for 24 hours. When that period begins, we render these fragments and we analyze which fragments are available and which ones are not. And we reconstruct the video for them. And we actually took a chance to request a screening today. And although you won't hear the sound, you could see, I'm going to launch this video. Let me just fast forward a little bit so that as you can see in this video, what's interesting is you see some fragments are missing. And these are the fragments where some of the collectors actually exercise their right not to share their piece. This is actually kind of interesting because Eve always viewed this artwork, even though it's digital, she thinks of it as being like having its own mortality, so to say, like a digital mortality. Because with these fragments, it's possible that the people who chose not to share their fragments may lose access to their digital wallets, or they may forget about their fragments, and over time, over an extended period of time, this digital piece will probably die or will slowly disappear. Some future renditions of this artwork, when they're reconstructed, might not show, may show only a third of the available fragments. But to some extent, it's actually kind of interesting that the digital artwork can have this type of a life. So this is basically our first experiment with using blockchain. On the one hand, both to provide this kind of digital scarcity, explore this kind of a new fractionalization with certain participation ability, where each collector essentially is shepherding this artwork into its future and is participating in some way in every screening, and can also organize their own screenings and exhibitions and wherever they're located. And an artwork that has been essentially sold out and is shown every once in a while when some museums decide to pull it out of its archives for some exhibition has now been shown at least 60 times in the past 6 months by various collectors all over the world. Here's a quick other piece. I'm just going to jump right now quickly so as not to waste a lot of time. This is a piece by artist, composer Volkmar Klein from Austria. You're not going to hear it, which is unfortunate, but you'll get the idea. So Volkmar takes the act of obsessively archiving his collection of sounds and compositions, and he starts archiving it in a way where he draws a drawing associated with every sound, and these drawings are actually quite beautiful, and he constructs a machine where, although you won't hear the sound, you can imagine that basically there's a magnetic tape located at the back of each drawing, and you can actually hear what each drawing sounds like. So we wanted to take this project into a digital realm, and the way we did it was we wanted, like, it's very hard often to take something that was analog and take it into digital and make it better. Analog tends to be much better format, much more alive. When you play a record on a record player, you hear every scratch, which is actually adds to the experience. In digital, it's always perfect, but digital offers new possibilities. Digital, for example, what Volkmar wanted to explore, to give a community of collectors of his drawings, and we have hundreds of these drawings, to allow the collectors to also have a shared experience. And so we created this kind of digital canvas where, through the blockchain, we verify that a collector is actually in possession of one of these drawings. And all the drawings, if you have one, you can share it with the community. And so we created this kind of a digital canvas. And again, although you won't hear it, you could imagine that a collector can start creating their own compositions made from individual fragmented, well, not fragmented in this case, but original sounds and compositions to create like a full piece. And what was interesting, and this is really the power of blockchain technology, is that we had a collector who bought about 300 drawings, and he took it into this virtual space that Kate was presenting earlier, and they created their own audio-visual experience inside this VR world, which is like completely unexpected, but it creates new possibilities for artists to explore works that start, in this case, in physical realm, move into digital, and ultimately find themselves in the virtual reality. The experience is changing, even though the artwork was never anticipated for such combinations. And perhaps like a couple of others, we also are exploring more static artworks where we're working with street artists and even very traditional artists like Ilya and Emilia Kabakov. They're over 80 years old, and yet they're interested in this technology as a way to reach a younger audience and to give access to people who would never have the ability to own or experience their works. We work with augmented reality projects, which is also kind of an interesting combination for us because it combines both a digital component and a physical component. So in this work by Recycle Group, even though you actually own this, it's called garbage, you own this piece of garbage that has this tag on it that ultimately creates the augmented experience. The augmented experience, the digital certificate of it essentially is something that is tokenized on the blockchain, and its ownership is validated. So somebody can experience it, but they're not the owner of the original work. And we also work with some traditional artists like Kendall Gears, who are also excited to explore both the augmented reality aspect and digital works. And lastly, I mean, we'll jump, like we did an AI project where the poetry is recorded on a blockchain. So it's like a fortune cookie project where somebody opens a fortune cookie and AI generates a poem that is then written forever on chain. And we also did a public performance, which I'm not going to get into because I think we run out of time. But anyways, thank you for listening, and I hope we discuss some of this in the near future.
Mikhail,
thank you very much. It's great potential of blockchain. It's limitless, and the digital art can get old. Proves that it's real, like a canvas can go thin and the paint just drop, crumble. Then so a fragment of digital art can die away, and there can be some beauty in it. So thank you very much. And another speaker in our today's discussion, Mark, an artist and entrepreneur. Please take it away.
Yes, hi. Thanks for having me. It's a huge pleasure to be on the panel with you all and also as a speaker following you. Just very briefly from my side, I don't have any slides. I'm originally a tech entrepreneur, founded and exited 2 internet companies. And besides that, I was always playing around with pixels since my early days as a teenager when I had my first computer, a Commodore 64. Some of you might be familiar with it. And since then, I always saw convergence of technology and art. And out in 2012, I explored Bitcoin, not as a speculator, but really as a tech entrepreneur, interested in the technology behind. And as you can imagine, back then, it was not about investing and going price up or down. It was really about the decentralized power of the blockchain technology, which is literally behind the power of Bitcoin. And that's why, as a digital artist mainly working with pixels, it was quite obvious for me that I somehow had to combine these worlds. So I decided in 2014 to also accept Bitcoin to buy my artwork. So I literally, I guess, was one of the first artists who somehow brought these worlds together. And I think it's really exciting to see what blockchain now is enabling, completely different business models from a business side, but also from an artist perspective, really using the power of this decentralized element. And as we also heard from Robert in the beginning, I think there's a paradigm shift, literally an industry which doesn't really change that much in the last few hundred years, has now completely different opportunities. Also, as we heard from Kate, which I know very well, and I'm also based here in Zurich, that she's really fostering the whole ecosystem, combining and bringing together artists and blockchain-related use cases. So I think it's really an exciting time, and I think it also completely makes sense to look at this whole development as a seismic shift, bringing together technology and art, and literally, as we also saw in the presentation of Misha right before me, somehow the whole two worlds are coming together. I also liked what Sophia showed us. So I think it's now far more about entrepreneurs, technologists, geeks, programmers somehow moving into art, and also the other side, artists moving into technology. So I think it's a very exciting time, and everybody of us is somehow shaping these developments. And yeah, that's it from my side. As I said, no slides, and I'm already looking forward to our panel discussion. Thank you.
Спасибо большое, Марк.
Thank you so much, Mark. And that's exactly what we're going to do right now. It's the discussion and the debate and the panel. But in the beginning of the discussion, I would like to mention that we've done a little poll on a Russian social network, asking people, do they know what blockchain is? And 30% of people, 30, said frankly that they have, no idea what it is. Other 20 tried to suggest what it is, but only 50% really know what this whole system is all about. And it turns out that it seems like not only people are not aware what blockchain is, they're not even sure whether one can be trusting blockchain. So, Robert, can your certificates be trusted? The ones that are using blockchain? And how to communicate that simple thought to people that that's okay to work with blockchain even though it's online?
Well, you have to look at what the status quo is and where we're at. And so I always tell people you still need to trust the person that is you're interacting with. It's not entirely decentralized, like sending electronic cash such as Bitcoin or another form of kind of cryptocurrency like Ethereum, whereby one has to have the certain kind of responsibilities of sovereignty that come with maintaining your own key, having your own wallet. We took the view very early on that this was not a realistic solution in the art market, and really guided by how many people we'd seen who had just forgotten their passwords in sites we'd previously built. And having started off my internet career AOL in 1995, I'm always reminded by the need not to let the technology get ahead of the user experience, even though that technology may be very tempting, and technologists will increasingly kind of show you what can be done. But when you come to actually create a service that people value and people pay for, ease of use is paramount. And so with regards to the certificates on VERISART, we can absolutely say that when the artist has verified their identity, they are using a reserved name, they're using a set of cryptographic key commitments that are consistent, and that consistency is a greater indication of trust than would otherwise be served by the status quo. The status quo being, pieces of paper that can be copied. You can't tell the difference between the fake title and the real title. But at the end of the day, when it comes to transacting value, then as long as the artwork is physical, there will continue to be a break between whatever the digital contract says or the digital certificate and what the physical object is. And it comes back to my kind of first point, which is let's look at kind of what the status quo is. And can we improve on the status quo? We absolutely believe we can, and we believe that the VERISART digital certificates are more trustworthy than pieces of paper, with the great caveat that you still have to trust the person you're transacting with.
Thank you very much, Robert. And the question to Sofia. Blockchain artist. Is he an artist, or is he a person who needs to put his head around various technologies and study math, basically?
It's an artist, I think. Fortunately, fortunately for us, we don't need to make from scratch the platforms because the platforms are there already. So we don't need to code the technology again. And that's really helpful. I personally think that one doesn't need to reinvent the wheel every time we want to do something. So yeah, definitely an artist.
Where did you study? Where did you learn this type of art?
Blockchain.
I mean, blockchain.
So I'm mainly self-taught. I was lucky enough that I was friends with somebody who teaches AI art, actually. So Gene Kogan, he's an educator on AI art, and he got me started on it. And then from there, I took off learning online. Fortunately, there are so many online resources nowadays that one can fully learn also from using, also from experience and taking the time to study the code and trying to understand what it's doing. So I would say mainly self-taught. Yeah.
Well, it's good to hear. It means that everyone can become an artist, can do what you're doing. Yeah, when there's a wish, there's a will, as they say. But of course, you have to be technically savvy for that. Kate, and a question to you. Why a large museum or a large gallery do not recognize blockchain as a tool?
Okay. I think there are some certain terms that we have to clarify before we move to answer this question. Also, the same question which was addressed to Sophia, blockchain artist or crypto artist. I think there is a confusion between the two terms. Crypto art, just is to define crypto art. It's considered to be like rare digital artworks. Sometimes they're getting described like digital trading cards or something rare, associated as a unique or probably rare tokens. I mean, the definition of token everybody can look up, that exist on blockchain. That means that it's just a concept based on the idea of digital scarcity, which allows you to trade, buy, sell, and these digital goods as their physical goods. So it has nothing to do with the artist recreating or doing an IT work to build up the chain or main chain or whatever, or the certain things, where the whole trading system exists, When it comes to generative artists, when it's generative art, it's an art which is supported or kind of supported or generated by the help with an autonomous machine. Generative art term has evolved as a term for many, many years. It can be, it used to be computer art. At some point, it was also known as net art, or some new media art back in the 80s. So the term has been evolving, but the whole idea of generative art, it's nothing new. It has a history for the last of 70 years. And if we dig up the history of art, we can see that actually many conceptual artists have been talking about generative art back at the times, but they didn't have a technology. So with the technological progress over the period of time, we see that many artists are just picking up, and they are lucky enough that we have this technological progress, that they can use this technology as just an artistic expression, as an artistic tool. So that's just to clarify the difference between blockchain, generative art, and then maybe it's going to be a bit more clear, of the difference, that the artist himself or herself is not building up the blockchain platforms or doing the blockchain as a tool. So yes, everybody can use that because there are platforms, and everybody can tokenize art with the help of fractional ownership in Snark.art, or doing the provenance with VERISART, or trading on the various platforms. Whatsoever. What was the question about? I'm sorry, because I was overwhelmed by the different terms, and I felt like it's very important to clarify now, otherwise we're going to get messy. The question was...
Well, thank you for clarifying the difference, but my question was, why galleries, quite often in large museums, negate blockchain?
That's not true. I think nowadays there's been a lot of acknowledgement from traditional art world. If we look back at the couple of years, there've been auction houses like Christie's, for example, doing summits around blockchain and about AI, and getting into discussions and inviting the many experts like Robert Norton. I think he was also at one of the art and tech summits at Christie's back in time in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. I think I'm not lying when I'm saying that. And also a lot of museums, they are picking up on the topic, and they did quite a few shows on AI, particularly back in 2019. We've seen Barbican Center in London doing their beautiful show on artificial intelligence. We've seen ZKM and Karlsruhe Museum, who is doing constantly a lot of exhibitions on technology, and I think nobody can compare with that. We have Museum Hack in Basel, which are also constantly shown. But not to go far away, in St. Petersburg, last year, during the Cultural Forum in St. Petersburg, there was Cyber Festival, and during this Cyber Festival, you've been doing an amazing show in Stiglitz Academy, a beautiful space as well, and we've been experiencing a lot of interesting artists as well. So the museums and auctions, they do acknowledge the technology, and they do acknowledge generative artists, and blockchain as a tool. I guess it can be used for fundraising probably as well for the museums, as one of an alternative of how I see it. But I have no idea. I'm not a museum curator, I'm not a museum person. I just can assume that they might potentially use this blockchain technology for fundraising as one of the alternatives.
If I could just add a couple of words on that. I actually wasn't at Christie's summit that year, because my wife had our first child at that time. But I was talking at Art Basel in 2018 at their first summit on blockchain, and at the time, it was the first time actually Art Basel in Switzerland kind of recognized the topic, and it was given pride of place. And just from my own experience, I think the art world is really very interested in blockchain at the auction houses level. I mean, we worked with, Padlet, it's no longer around, but, for a while it was a leading online auction player. We also certified works both by Obvious, which was sold at Christie's, and also Mario Klingerman that was sold at Sotheby's, two artists working like Sophia with GANs and, pushing the realms of technology with regards to new types of art creation. And I can absolutely tell you, without breaching any non-disclosure agreements, that all the auction houses are actively looking at how blockchain certification can be a basis for, standards in an industry that hasn't really had standards. And when you look at the online trade reports, whether it's Hiscox or, the Deloitte Art and Finance report, people are asking, collectors are asking for more standard certificates of authenticity, sort of standards in the industry that really are about building trust. Because if you can grow trust, you can grow a bigger market. And that's what I think is so exciting about the different entrepreneurs and platforms that are, seeking to create, more universal standards in this market.
Ну, отрадно слышать, что все-таки от новых
Also,
видов искусства
pleasing to
не
hear that
отказываются ни
you
галереи, ни музеи, потому что всё
don't
равно
say no to new
есть
types of
ощущение,
art,
что
museums and
люди
galleries, because
побаиваются.
sometimes
Я
you
тут
feel
пример
like people are a bit
привели
scared.
Петербург. Петербург действительно
But
прогрессивный в этом
you're in
плане
St. Petersburg
тоже.
now,
Надеюсь, что
virtually,
когда-нибудь у
and
нас
St. Petersburg is very
откроются
progressive in this sense.
большие
So I hope that at
музеи
some point we're going to have great big museums with a blockchain art and digital art. Mark, I'd like to ask you, do you think that blockchain is going to open up new ways to finance art?
Yeah, I think we saw some examples in the presentations before, right? I mean, literally, you can make investments and traceabilities far more transparent, and that has nothing to do with Bitcoin. It's really about the technology behind. So perhaps to address the 30% who have absolutely no clue about blockchain, just to try explain it in one sentence, it's literally just a decentralized database which is shared across a network of computers, right? And it ensures that all the data is relevant. As Robert mentioned, it's not just on a paper and everybody can change it. It's really literally a decentralized database. So hopefully there are now less than 30% at least have a certain understanding about the technology. And so that's why I think, and we also saw a few examples, it's really about connecting also the value chain from the buyer, from the secondary market to the artist, to the value generation of creating, selling and trading art. And I think blockchain is just a unique technology which enables, and that's going back to your question, additional interest, additional collectors, additional investments into this field. I mean, a big part is also the whole fraud element, which can be avoided, and the traceability. I mean, imagine how it would be that you can really see all the interactions from the creation of an art piece to the first buyer and then via the secondary market to the actual owner. I mean, these are complete new opportunities, and I think that's why blockchain and art are extremely close, and it makes a lot of sense to combine these old, literally mankind old activity with the new emerging technology of blockchain.
Thank you, Mark. And another poll we had in Kentucky network: where do we really need blockchain? In what area? Where do we most need it? And like 50% think that in art, and 50% think that in technical, in sciences and medicine, trade, commerce. Or Mikhail, do you think the world of art will lose a lot if we deprive it from blockchain? And why do we really need blockchain in art, in the world of art?
I don't know if the art world is really gonna Yeah, it would be just continuing a status quo. I think that blockchain, on the one hand, is huge for digital arts because you mentioned how the traditional art world is still not fully embracing blockchain technology, but we can also talk about the discussion of why the traditional art world is not fully embracing digital arts, because if you look at different industries from publishing, book publishing to music, a lot of it is shifting into digital space, but the art world is still kind of just beginning to show a bigger share of digital arts. And I think the fact that you can now have this idea of digital scarcity, which gives value to digital artworks, which ultimately will translate to revenue for the artists and make them more interested in exploring digital medium. That's where the blockchain technology can really help bring digital art into the traditional art market on a bigger scale. I also think that idea of kind of using the technology as a sort of a trust system, and to have this kind of the certificate of authenticity that VERISART is doing is also kind of interesting. And I think it's quite important because it adds an element of transparency, because I don't know a less transparent market out there than art market. It's very difficult to get any kind of information out there about maybe just the main like big name artists that are selling through auction houses. We could get information on them and the artworks that they produce, but 90% of the art out there is kind of completely non-transparent. So I definitely think that that's where it could gain as well. And just overall, even to go back to your earlier question, I feel that do people really need to know how blockchain technology works? I don't think so. Just like they don't know how internet works, but we still wind up going on a browser and we look up what like New York Times says and we believe it. And so over time, I think as user experience will get much better, and we will access the same internet, except there's going to be a new level of trust that's added, because right now the information, especially now with the current political situation in the US and how the entire news medium is like labeled as fake news and no one knows what to trust, and now potentially there is also possibilities there to add a certain level of trust to our online digital experiences. And I think all of this is coming together. Maybe we are sometime like I was in a discussion a couple of weeks ago where state of blockchain was compared to internet of the 80s, and I don't even know that there was internet of the 80s, but the person explained why that is so. So I don't know whether we're early or late, but it's coming, and I don't think the art world can really ignore it. It's going to be part of it, and it's going to be both help the digital arts and physical art aspect as well. So that's it.
Well, thank you very much, Mikhail. And then in audience, a question from the audience, from Thierry to Robert. How should we start meeting and getting to know blockchain? And can you name main digital artists in this area? Well, we already met Sophia. Can you name some big names? It's a question to Robert.
I was on mute. I said, yeah, absolutely. I'll give you a few different ones. I mean, one artist who wouldn't call himself a digital artist, but I think in the contemporary art market is really spent his career looking at the way systems work and how to kind of portray them from a fine art context is Simon Denny. And he's tackled not only servers and databases and network requests, but he's also tackled the issues of blockchains directly. We've seen more recently artists that actually certify with us, such as Trevor Jones and Lucio Paletti, who sell on platforms such as Super Rare and Nifty Gateway. And I think Trevor Jones the other weekend, broke a world record for a fine art NFT. And on the other hand, you've seen people like Robert Alice, who sold I think it was Christie's or Sotheby's in Hong Kong last month, part of his Bitcoin project, which involved not only a NFT, but also a physical piece. So it's early days. As with any new technology, it attracts, the pioneers first and the kind of crazy ones, and then eventually it becomes easier for people to use and people start to incorporate it into different practices. But I think some context here is really my time at Sedition. We started that business in 2010. So, 10 years ago, we set out to build a digital limited editions platform. And, I think that Misha raised some good points that, as you start to think about new models online, one doesn't need to just kind of emulate how the old models work. And in fact, the successful digital platforms tend to sort of innovate and actually create a new model from the outset. But one thing that I do think digital art will continue to struggle with, no matter how great the technology becomes, is the fact that we are still very much physical human beings. And when it comes to collectible objects, the great value is in being able to own the object. And I was talking to an artist, in fact, who's working with, or is considering working with Snark.art, Michael Chu, over the weekend. We were discussing this. And, one of the things I kind of was saying to him is, the great thing about a physical object is that it enforces a passage of time, in the sense that you can't swipe left and swipe right and the object disappears from your wall. And so during that passage of time, when you're kind of in front of that object, you have that sort of breathing room upon which to kind of start to denote maybe more time, and time may denote more value. And I think that relationship between, it's almost like a sort of quantum physics point between the viewer and the viewed object, the energy that creates, what that actually means to us in terms of what we value and what we collect, I'm not sure has been fully understood. And so while I'm a huge proponent of artists working in digital tools, and I spent the last 10 years building platforms that use digital technology and that are targeted at artists in order to provide them with more empowering means to either have their work sold or recognized or digitized or certified. As someone who's also a collector, I really do value the enforced passage of time that are apparent with physical objects.
Спасибо большое, Роберт. София, хочется у вас тоже узнать.
Thank you very much, dear friends. Where do you think we should start getting to know this digital art? Sophia.
Oh,
Sophia.
Oh, I'm sorry. I hadn't fully... Could you repeat the question, please?
Вы заслушались, да, я поняла. Хотела узнать у вас, как вы считаете,
Can you tell me, where should somebody start getting to know digital art? Any specific names, or getting to know the actual technology first?
Well, it's a very broad question because there are so many ways of doing digital art, actually. It really, it could go from coding in processing to coding one's own software to actually just doing plotting or even painting like digitally. I mean, digital art is a very, very broad practice nowadays. So a lot of it I share just on social media, and I think that fortunately the crypto art world allows to also discover lots of digital artists too. But I cannot say I know one specific place where people can search for digital art apart from I look for digital art on social media mainly. Sorry.
В общем, нужно в это все погружаться.
So you really have to dig in and look for your artist and get to know how this digital world works. Thank you very much for this interesting discussion. It's closing the 2.0 panel, and I wish you your inspiration and let more and more people know what blockchain is, even if they don't know how it actually works. It's great to know that not one of you is against this system. We're all very trendy, en vogue, we're all progressive, and there's a lot of potential in blockchain. We just learned it today. It's immense. Thank you very much. And to the TV audience, I'd like to remind you, if for some reason you missed an interesting session, you can watch a rerun on the official site of St. Petersburg International Cultural Forum. And it's goodbye to all of you. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Спасибо, пока.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.
It was a
Thank you.
pleasure.